The crystalline walls of the Zephyrian council chamber reflected Lyra's pale blue skin as she stood before the assembled elders, her delicate hands trembling despite her efforts to appear composed. The marriage contract floated in holographic display before them, its alien script glowing with finality. Her people, the Zephyrians, had always prided themselves on their advanced technology and sophisticated culture, but now they faced extinction. The plague had swept through their homeworld like wildfire, targeting their reproductive systems with surgical precision. Within 3 generations, their birth rates had plummeted to near zero. Traditional medicine had failed. Their most brilliant scientists had exhausted every possibility. Now, only one option remained: an alliance through marriage with the species that had somehow developed immunity to the plague. Humans. Elder Vanis stepped forward, his ancient features grave. Lyra of House Ushvin, you understand the weight of this sacrifice. The human Marcus Chun has agreed to the bonding. His species carries genetic markers that our scientists believe will grant immunity to our offspring. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She had seen the footage of humans in combat, savage, brutal creatures that seemed to thrive on violence. Their military prowess had become legendary across the galaxy after they had single-handedly turned the tide in the Galactic War against the Void Swarm. Stories spoke of human soldiers fighting for days without rest, surviving in conditions that would kill most species, and displaying a ferocity that made even the most hardened warriors pause. "What do we know of his temperament?" Lyra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elder Kess consulted her data tablet. Marcus Chun, age 32 by human standards. Former military commander, now serving as a cultural attaché. He has no criminal record and has volunteered for this arrangement to help forge stronger ties between our species. The word volunteer did little to ease Lyra's fears. What kind of creature volunteered to marry a complete alien? The implications made her stomach churn. The ceremony will take place in 3 days, Elder Vanis announced. You will travel to the neutral station at Kepler 442 to meet your husband. As the council dismissed her, Lyra's mind raced with terror and questions. She had studied human physiology in preparation. They were larger, more muscular, with strange round pupils and flat faces. Their homeworld of Earth was a death world by galactic standards, with crushing gravity and violent weather patterns that would kill most civilized species within hours. 2 days later, aboard the transport vessel heading toward Kepler 442, Lyra found herself reviewing every piece of human cultural data she could access. The more she learned, the more her fear grew. Humans had a history of warfare spanning their entire existence. They consumed other living creatures for sustenance. Their entertainment often involved simulated violence. Captain Thorne, the ship's Altarian pilot, noticed her distress. First time meeting a human, young one? Lyra nodded, unable to speak. I fought alongside them in the war, Thorne said quietly. Strangest species I've ever encountered. Absolutely terrifying in battle, but he paused, his expression thoughtful. I once saw a human soldier carry a wounded crystalline trooper for 3 kilometers through enemy territory. The crystalline wasn't even his species, wasn't his responsibility. When I asked him why, he just shrugged and said seemed like the right thing to do. What are you trying to tell me? Lyra asked. Humans are contradictions wrapped in flesh, Thorne replied. They're capable of incredible violence, yes, but also incredible compassion. The same hands that can tear apart a battle mech can cradle an injured bird with infinite gentleness. Lyra stared out at the stars, trying to reconcile this information with her fears. Soon, she would be bound to one of these contradictory creatures, expected to bear children with him, to build a life together. The thought made her skin crawl with a mixture of terror and something else, something she couldn't quite identify. As Kepler 442 station grew larger in the viewport, Lyra pressed her palm against the cool metal wall and wondered if she would survive whatever was coming. Her people's future depended on this union succeeding, but first, she would have to survive meeting the human who would become her husband. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic clang, sealing her fate. The airlock hissed open, and Lyra stepped onto Kepler 442 station with legs that felt like liquid metal. The neutral territory hummed with activity as dozens of species conducted business, but her attention focused entirely on the reception area where she would meet her intended husband. Ambassador Kelta, a diplomatic centurion, guided her through the corridors. The human delegation arrived yesterday, she explained. Marcus Chun specifically requested to meet you in the botanical gardens rather than a formal conference room. He thought it might be more comfortable. Lyra's confusion mixed with her fear. Why would a warrior want to meet among plants? Was this some kind of hunting behavior? They entered the vast botanical section of the station, where carefully maintained ecosystems from dozens of worlds created a breathtaking tapestry of colors and scents. Lyra had never seen anything like it. Towering earth trees stood beside crystalline formations from Xerion, while flowering vines from Altair wound around supporting structures that resembled Zephyrian architecture. There, Ambassador Kelta pointed toward a small clearing where benches surrounded a fountain that played musical notes as water fell across tuned crystals. Lyra's breath caught. A human sat on one of the benches, but he wasn't what she had expected. Marcus Chun was indeed larger than any Zephyrian, probably twice her height and weight, but he sat with careful stillness, watching a small butterfly-like creature from Tau Ceti land on his extended finger. His movement was so gentle, so controlled, that the delicate being showed no fear. She had expected armor, weapons, the hard lines of a military bearing. Instead, Marcus wore simple civilian clothes in soft earth tones. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, and when he noticed her approach, his brown eyes held an expression of such genuine kindness that Lyra stumbled slightly. The butterfly took flight as Marcus stood, and Lyra noticed how he moved, fluid, precise like a dangerous predator, but somehow also protective. He was keeping his distance, she realized, staying several steps away to avoid intimidating her. "You must be Lyra," he said, his voice deeper than she had expected, but remarkably gentle. "I'm Marcus. I want you to know how honored I am that your people chose me for this partnership." Partnership, not marriage, not acquisition. Partnership. Lyra began, then faltered. She had prepared formal greetings, diplomatic speeches, but faced with this unexpectedly considerate approach, words failed her. Marcus seemed to understand her distress. "Would you like to sit? I know this situation is overwhelming." "It is for me too, if I'm being honest." He was nervous? Lyra looked more closely and noticed the slight tension in his shoulders, the way his hands remained carefully clasped behind his back. Not in a military posture, she realized, but to keep from fidgeting. They sat on opposite ends of the bench, an appropriate distance for strangers. Lyra found herself studying his profile as he gazed at the fountain. His features were strong, but not harsh, and there was something almost vulnerable about the way he held himself. "I've been reading about Zephyrian culture," Marcus said quietly. "Your art, your music, your poetry, it's beautiful. I particularly enjoyed the works of Saren Lightweaver. Her piece about the harmony of crystal and wind spoke to something I didn't know existed in myself." Lyra blinked in surprise. Saren Lightweaver was considered one of the most complex and nuanced poets in Zephyrian history. Most aliens found her work incomprehensible. "You understood her poetry?" "I think so. She writes about finding beauty in the spaces between things, doesn't she? The pause between notes that makes music meaningful, the distance between stars that creates constellations." Marcus turned to look at her directly, and Lyra felt a strange flutter in her chest. "I've spent a lot of time in the spaces between things. Military deployment leaves you with long hours to think. I expected someone more." Lyra struggled for diplomatic words. "Violent." Marcus smiled, and the expression transformed his face completely. "Understand. Humans have a reputation. We've earned it, unfortunately. But violence is just one tool in our survival kit. We're equally capable of creation, protection, nurturing. The same impulse that drives us to fight also drives us to shield others from harm." As if to prove his point, Marcus noticed a small maintenance spot that had gotten tangled in some vines. Without hesitation, He knelt and carefully freed it, his large hands working with delicate precision to avoid damaging either the mechanical device or the plants. "The marriage contract," Lyra said suddenly. "Do you understand what it means?" Marcus nodded seriously. "I understand that your people are facing extinction. I understand that this union represents hope for both our species, a chance to forge stronger bonds and create something new together. I also understand that you're terrified of me." The honest acknowledgement hit Lyra like a physical blow. It's okay," Marcus said gently. "Your fear is rational. Humans can be frightening. But I want you to know that I will never, ever harm you. Whatever relationship develops between us will be built on respect and mutual consent. Nothing else." Lyra stared at him, trying to reconcile this thoughtful, gentle being with everything she had been told about humans. "What do you want from this arrangement?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "I want your people to survive and thrive. I want to learn about your culture, your way of seeing the universe. And I hope that maybe in time we can build something meaningful together, even if it's just friendship and mutual respect." The honesty in his voice made something loosen in Lyra's chest. For the first time since receiving news of the marriage contract, she felt like she might be able to breathe. The formal ceremony took place the following day in the station's main amphitheater, witnessed by representatives from both species and broadcast across the galaxy as a symbol of interspecies cooperation. Lyra wore traditional Zephyrian ceremonial robes that shimmered like captured starlight, while Marcus had chosen a simple but elegant human suit in midnight blue. As they exchanged vows according to both cultural traditions, Lyra found herself focusing not on the words but on Marcus's hands. She had expected them to be rough, scarred from battle, but they were surprisingly gentle, long-fingered and careful, with calluses that spoke of hard work rather than violence. When the ceremony concluded and the witnesses dispersed, Lyra felt the weight of reality settling over her. They were married now, bound by law and diplomatic necessity. The next phase of their arrangement would take place on Marcus's personal ship, where they would travel to a joint human Zephyrian research station to begin the medical protocols that might save her species. The ship, called Harmony's Edge, surprised Lyra with its comfortable design. She had expected a military vessel, stark, utilitarian, intimidating. Instead, she found herself in what could only be described as a floating home. The corridors were lined with artwork from various worlds, and the common areas featured comfortable seating arrangements and soft lighting that seemed designed for relaxation rather than efficiency. "I had the ship modified," Marcus explained as he showed her to her private quarters. "The original design was pretty Spartan. I thought you might be more comfortable with some domestication." Her quarters were larger than her apartment back home, with a viewing port that looked out into the stars and a small alcove that had been set up with Zephyrian meditation crystals and traditional music players. "You studied our customs," Lyra observed, touching one of the crystals with reverence. "I want you to feel at home here," Marcus replied simply. "Your quarters connect to mine through that door, but it locks from your side. You control access completely." The consideration behind this arrangement struck Lyra forcefully. He was giving her the power to decide when and if to allow him closer, rather than assuming rights that their marriage might technically grant him. Over the next few days of travel, Lyra found herself drawn into a routine that felt surprisingly natural. Marcus was an excellent cook, she discovered, and took evident pleasure in preparing meals that accommodated her Zephyrian dietary needs while introducing her to human flavors. He was also well-read, with an extensive library of literature from dozens of species. "How did you learn so much about other cultures?" Lyra asked one evening as they shared dinner in the ship's small dining area. Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering his words. "When I was in the military, I saw what happens when species don't understand each other. Fear leads to violence. Violence leads to war. War leads to suffering. I decided that if I ever had the chance to build bridges instead of walls, I would take it." "Is that why you volunteered for this marriage?" "Partly," Marcus admitted, "but also because I believe in the potential for something beautiful to grow from unexpected beginnings. My grandparents met during a war. She was a refugee. He was a soldier assigned to protect the civilian evacuation. They had every reason to fear each other, but they chose to see the person behind the circumstances instead. Lyra found herself studying Marcus's face as he spoke, noting the way his expression softened when he talked about his family. What happened to them? They had 60 years together, built a farm, raised 5 children, died within a week of each other because neither could bear to be without the other. Marcus smiled at the memory. I grew up believing that love could transcend any barrier if people were willing to work for it. The word love hung in the air between them, not as an expectation, but as a possibility. Lyra felt something shift in her chest. Not quite attraction yet, but a recognition that this human was nothing like what she had feared. Later that evening, Lyra found herself in the ship's small observatory, watching the stars wheel past through the transparent dome. She didn't hear Marcus approach until he spoke softly from the entrance. Mind if I join you? I can leave if you prefer solitude. She considered the offer, then shook her head. Stay, please. Marcus settled into a chair several feet away, giving her space while still sharing the wonder of the view. They sat in comfortable silence for a long time, watching nebulae drift past like cosmic artwork. What's Earth like? Lyra asked eventually. Marcus's face lit up with enthusiasm. Complicated, beautiful, dangerous. We have oceans that stretch beyond the horizon, mountains that pierce the clouds, deserts that go on for days. The weather can kill you, the wildlife can kill you, the very air can kill you if you're in the wrong place, but it's also, he struggled for words. It's alive in a way that nowhere else is. Everything on Earth fights to survive, which means everything is constantly becoming stronger, more adaptable, more resilient, including humans, especially humans. We're persistence predators, Lyra. We don't give up, ever. When something threatens what we care about, we find a way to overcome it or we die trying. He turned to look at her directly. Your people are part of what I care about now. Your survival matters to me. The intensity in his voice made Lyra's breath catch. She had expected duty, diplomatic necessity, perhaps even grudging tolerance. She had not expected this fierce protective instinct that seemed to radiate from Marcus whenever they discussed her species' plight. I'm beginning to understand, she said quietly, why the galaxy fears humans, but also why they need you. Marcus nodded slowly. We're a double-edged sword. The same qualities that make us dangerous make us invaluable allies. The question is always which side of that sword people choose to face. The research station appeared in their view screen like a metallic flower blooming against the void, its modular design reflecting both human engineering practicality and Zephyrian aesthetic sensibilities. As they docked, Lyra felt her nervousness returning. But it was different now, less about fear of Marcus and more about the uncertain path ahead. Dr. Sarah Chun, Marcus's cousin, and the station's lead geneticist greeted them at the airlock. She was smaller than Marcus, but possessed the same calm intensity, her dark eyes bright with scientific curiosity and genuine warmth. Welcome to Synthesis Station, she said, embracing Marcus before turning to Lyra with a respectful bow in the Zephyrian style. Lyra, it's an honor to meet you. I've been studying the genetic compatibility data, and I'm cautiously optimistic about our chances. Dr. Zeltar, the Zephyrian medical specialist, joined them as they toured the facility. The station contained the most advanced genetic research equipment from both species, designed to analyze and potentially modify the reproductive challenges that threatened Zephyrian survival. The process will take several weeks, Dr. Chun explained as they entered the main laboratory. We need to conduct extensive genetic mapping of both of you, then develop the necessary medical protocols. Nothing invasive, nothing dangerous, but it will require your presence here for extended periods. Lyra nodded, trying to process the clinical reality of what they were attempting. This wasn't just about saving her species. It was about creating new life with a human standing beside her. Over the following days, Lyra and Marcus settled into life aboard the research station. The medical procedures were indeed non-invasive, mostly consisting of scans and biological samples, but the emotional weight of the situation grew heavier with each passing day. Marcus seemed to sense her growing anxiety. One evening, As they walked through the station's recreation area, he suddenly stopped at an observation lounge that offered a spectacular view of a nearby binary star system. "Talk to me," he said quietly. "What's troubling you?" Lyra hesitated, then decided honesty was the only path forward. "The medical protocols are working. Dr. Chun says our genetic compatibility is even better than expected. But that means this becomes real, and I don't know if I'm ready for that reality." "What part frightens you most?" "Children," Lyra admitted. "Creating new life with someone I barely know. What kind of beings will we bring into existence? Will they be more human or more Zephyrian? Will they belong anywhere?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching the binary stars dance around each other in their eternal cosmic waltz. "My grandfather used to say that the strongest trees grow where two different soil types meet. The mixing creates something richer than either could provide alone. This is more complex than soil composition." "True," Marcus acknowledged. "But the principle holds. Our children, if we're blessed with them, won't be caught between two worlds. They'll be bridges connecting them. They'll carry the best of both species and have the strength to stand in either world or forge new ones entirely." His certainty was both comforting and intimidating. "How can you be so confident about something so unprecedented?" "Because I've seen what happens when species work together instead of against each other," Marcus replied. "During the war, the most effective units were always mixed species teams. Humans brought aggression and adaptability. Altarians provided tactical brilliance. Crystallants offered technical precision. Separately, we were good. Together, we were unstoppable." As they spoke, Dr. Chan approached with a data tablet and an expression of barely contained excitement. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this." The tablet displayed complex genetic charts that meant little to Lyra, but caused Marcus to straighten with interest. "The compatibility testing has revealed something unexpected," Dr. Chin continued. "The hybrid genetic template isn't just viable. It's potentially superior to either parent species in several key areas. Enhanced immune systems, improved cognitive flexibility, increased physical resilience, and, most importantly, complete immunity to the plague affecting the Zephyrians." Dr. Zeltar materialized beside them, his crystalline features betraying his own excitement. "Furthermore, the genetic markers suggest that these hybrid offspring could potentially serve as donors for immunity treatments for pure Zephyrians. We're not just talking about creating a new generation. We may have found the key to curing the existing population." Lyra felt the weight of this revelation settling over her. What had begun as a desperate alliance to ensure species survival had transformed into something far more significant. "There's something else," Dr. Chen added, her voice gentler now. "The genetic bonding process works both ways. If you choose to proceed, both of you will experience biological and neurological changes that will create what humans call pair bonding and what Zephyrians term soul resonance. Your emotional and physical compatibility will increase dramatically over time." "Meaning?" Marcus asked. "Meaning you'll grow to understand and care for each other in ways that transcend normal attraction or affection. It's not forced. The feelings will be genuinely yours, but the biological foundation for deep partnership will be established." Lyra looked at Marcus, seeing her own wonder reflected in his expression. They stood at the threshold of something unprecedented, not just a political alliance or a desperate measure for species survival, but the potential beginning of something entirely new in galactic history. "The choice is yours," Dr. Chin said quietly. "We can proceed with the bonding process whenever you're ready, or you could take more time to consider." Marcus turned to Lyra, his expression serious but kind. "What do you want to do?" For the first time since this arrangement began, Lyra realized she truly had a choice. Not between survival and extinction, but between fear and hope, between isolation and connection, between remaining who she had always been and becoming something unprecedented. She looked out at the binary stars, two separate celestial bodies caught in each other's gravity, creating light and beauty through their eternal dance. "I want to choose hope," she said quietly. "I want to choose us." The bonding procedure took place at sunset, station time, in a specially prepared chamber that combined elements from both Earth and Zephyr. Crystalline formations from Lyra's homeworld created natural harmonics, while Earth flowers provided gentle fragrances that were said to promote emotional openness in humans. Lyra no longer trembled as she entered the chamber with Marcus. The fear that had defined her first impressions of him had transformed into something deeper. Anticipation mixed with genuine affection and a growing sense that she was exactly where she belonged. The medical process itself was surprisingly simple, a gentle neural interface that would establish the biological foundation for their enhanced compatibility. As the fields activated, Lyra felt a warm, tingling sensation spread through her body, followed by something she could only describe as recognition. Her awareness of Marcus expanded beyond the physical, allowing her to sense his emotions as clearly as her own. What she found there amazed her. Beneath his calm exterior, Marcus carried depths of compassion that rivaled the greatest Zephyrian healers. His protective instincts weren't violent in nature, but nurturing, a deep need to create safe spaces where those he cared about could flourish. His love for her, still new but growing stronger by the moment, felt like sunrise after a long night. Through their enhanced connection, Marcus experienced Lyra's perspective in return. Her initial fear transformed into understanding as he felt how his species appeared to others. Powerful and dangerous, yes, but also absolutely committed to protecting what they cherished. Her growing affection for him carried notes of wonder and gratitude that made his chest tighten with emotion. "How do you feel?" Dr. Chen asked as the procedure concluded. Lyra looked at Marcus and found herself smiling. Not the careful, diplomatic expression she had worn for weeks, but something genuine and radiant. "Complete," she answered, surprising herself with the honesty. Marcus reached for her hand, and when their fingers touched, the connection between them strengthened. "Like I found something I didn't know I was missing," he agreed. Over the following weeks, their relationship deepened with remarkable speed. The biological bonding had established the foundation, but the emotional connection grew through shared experiences, conversations that lasted long into the station's night cycle, and the gradual building of genuine intimacy. Lyra discovered that humans expressed affection through small daily acts. Marcus would adjust the station's lighting to accommodate her circadian rhythms, learn to prepare traditional Zephyrian foods, and listen with complete attention when she shared stories about her homeworld. In return, she found herself wanting to understand everything about Earth culture, human history, and the complex emotional landscape that made Marcus who he was. The medical reports continued to show positive results. Their genetic compatibility was proving even better than the initial projections, and the first embryonic development trials were proceeding successfully. More importantly, the immunity treatments derived from their genetic template were showing promise in early trials with volunteer Zephyrian subjects. 3 months after their arrival at the station, Dr. Zeltar announced that they had achieved something unprecedented in galactic medical history, a complete cure for the plague that had threatened Zephyrian extinction. The treatment, based on genetic markers from their hybrid template, could not only prevent the disease, but actually repair the reproductive damage it had caused. "Your union has saved our species," Dr. Zeltar informed them during the announcement. "But more than that, you've proven that interspecies bonding can create outcomes superior to anything either species could achieve alone." That evening, Lyra and Marcus stood together on the station's main observation deck, watching a cargo ship depart for Zephyr, carrying the first shipment of the cure. Lyra leaned against Marcus's shoulder, marveling at how natural the gesture felt now. "Do you ever regret this?" she asked quietly. "Leaving your old life behind for something so uncertain?" Marcus wrapped his arms around her, and she felt his contentment through their bond. "Never. I was a soldier before this, trained to protect and serve. Now I get to do that in the most fundamental way possible, by helping create new life and new possibilities." He paused, pressing a gentle kiss to the top of her head. "Besides, I didn't leave my life behind. I found a better one." News of their success spread across the galaxy, sparking interest from other species facing similar challenges. The research station expanded, becoming a center for interspecies genetic compatibility studies. Lyra and Marcus found themselves at the center of a new field of science, their relationship serving as both research subject and proof of concept. A year later, when Lyra announced her pregnancy, the news was celebrated across both their homeworlds. The child would be the first of a new generation, beings who belonged fully to both species and could serve as bridges between worlds. As they prepared for parenthood, Lyra often thought back to that first terrifying meeting in the botanical gardens. The human she had feared as a potential monster had revealed himself to be the most caring, protective, and nurturing being she had ever encountered. His strength wasn't diminished by his gentleness. If anything, the combination made him more formidable than any mere warrior could be. "What do you think they'll be like?" Marcus asked one evening as they felt their unborn child move within Lyra's womb. "Our little bridge builder." Lyra smiled, placing her hand over his where it rested on her stomach. "Strong like their father, but in all the ways that matter. Gentle like their mother, but with the courage to stand up for what's right. Most importantly, they'll be living proof that fear can be overcome by understanding, and that the most beautiful things in the universe often grow from the most unlikely beginnings." Through their bond, she felt Marcus's agreement and his deep love for both her and the child they had created together. The marriage that had begun as a desperate political alliance had become something neither species had expected, a genuine partnership that would shape the future of galactic civilization. Their story became legend, told across the stars as proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their capacity for violence, but their infinite capacity for love, adaptation, and the creation of beauty from chaos. And in the quiet moments of their daily life together, Lyra and Marcus continued to build the future one gentle gesture, one shared laugh, one moment of connection at a time.